Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Charity Charge Show. Today, I'm very excited to have my new friend, Ann Fellman, who is the CMO at Bloomerang, on the podcast. Thank you, Ann, for being here.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited. This is gonna be
No,
fun.
definitely. I really appreciated the whole conversation that we just had prior to hitting this record button, and loved learning about obviously your background, the background of Bloomerang, where you all are going, the mission, vision. It's really great to meet someone in the space and also be able to share sort of some behind the scenes kind of war stories as we have tried to do good, but it's challenging to grow a business, and I really appreciate you being here. Just to kick it off, right? As you are the CMO of Bloomerang, I'd love to provide some context. We have thousands of nonprofits that we work with right now. We work with over 2,500 organizations on a daily basis at Charity Charge. And I know that the new report, Giving USA 2025, was more recently published. You had mentioned to my team that you might want to start there. Just curious if you could comment on that, and I kind of jumped into it. If you want to talk a little bit about your role as CMO at Bloomerang, happy to do that too.
Sure. Well, first, just all about Bloomerang, really. It's not really about my role, is just to make sure that Bloomerang shows up in the places and that nonprofits understand how we can help them raise more. And that's what Bloomerang is really all about, is helping not any size nonprofit raise more through a very robust, what we have, our Bloomerang Giving platform that has the best in CRM, so your donor management, the best in fundraising, online, offline events, auctions, and volunteer management. So when you think about what it takes to power a nonprofit, at the end of the day, nonprofits are trying to raise more support, time, treasure, talent, right? Because we have really important missions and we need the fuel to go drive that. So we've developed the Bloomerang Giving platform that's brought all these important technologies together in one place to really ultimately empower them to raise exponentially more. So it's about building strong, genuine relationships with their supporter communities and making sure they're sustainable and long term. And so that's what we see, and time again when we get customers up and running on Bloomerang, they are raising more, and they're well outperforming the sector as a whole. So really exciting stuff. So then when you step into Giving USA, Stephen, that's
Mhm.
where it gets really interesting. And you pair that with what's kind of the mindset of the sector overall? The mindset of the sector overall is we have a barrage of uncertainty and negative news cycles, right? Of there's been a lot of changes, federal funding changes, freezes, government pullbacks, there's staffing changes, right? There's the perennial challenges that we're just hit with messages time and time again. So it's easy to kind of fall to that. Oh my gosh, things are awful. And even there was a recent report out from the state. The state of the nonprofit sector had said that 85% of nonprofits expect increasing demand. So while we have this pressure of like, there's not enough, but yet we have more demands on our services than ever. It's a tough environment, but I want to challenge that thinking, like not succumbing to that thinking. And
Well,
the
I would
idea is,
sure, yeah, and I want to just jump in too. I think that you providing this, and which we're going to go into, perhaps in more detail here,
Mhm.
of taking a more measured, just looking at the data approach as opposed to just the headline grabbing, potentially emotional side of this, which obviously it can be for anyone who's listening that's running a nonprofit. They are overworked, underpaid, under resourced, and trying to provide obviously very much needed support and resources, whatever they're doing in their communities. But I was really surprised actually when I took a look at this Giving USA 2025. Go for it.
and that's just it, right? And so it's like, let's take a look at the data. Let's really see what's going out there. The myth of declining generosity. Exactly. It's a myth. Okay. Now, is it changing? Yes. Is it shifting where generosity is coming from? Absolutely. And so, as nonprofits, it's our job to kind of lean in and look at that and understand where those shifts are coming from. But the Giving USA report 2024, they revealed the highlights in late June. And next week, or on July 15th, they're going to release the really big report. So, definitely take a look at that. But the reality comes down to this: 66% of all charitable giving comes from individual donors, people like you and me, right?
And it has
And
for
it's
at least
growing.
over a decade. Yeah, okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and it's growing, and it continues to grow year over year. what I'm really excited about is it grew 8.2% in 2024. So generosity is alive and well and growing and
Eh,
thriving. So
just to
let's not lose sight of that.
yeah, explain that growth, because when you talk about that 8%, you're referring to the overall dollars that were contributed to organizations.
Yep, from just individuals,
Yep.
right? So you have to kind of break down that Giving USA report. So when you look at the pie, 66% of that pie comes from individual donors, and that grew at 8.2% in 2024. The dollars that they gave.
Uh, So one thing is we're looking at this Giving USA 2025, which is some of the teased information about it. You had mentioned the full reports coming out soon on the 15th. And then in here is the breakdown. They always obviously have to look a year back. 2025's report will be 2024's number, but here an increase. What's kind of interesting is you see the increase across everything other than bequests. Do you
Yeah.
have any comment on that, or why corporate giving was also up 9%? That's pretty significant, 8 to 10% increase.
It is it's still kinda sitting in their zone of what corporate giving's been performing, and it's not a
Mhm.
huge chunk of the pie because people go, "Oh, well, we should go all over corporate giving." I would
Right.
say corporate giving really hasn't changed that a whole lot. They still corporations are still giving around 1% of their their profits in general. So it should be it's an important part of your fundraising strategy is to say, okay, giving from individuals, giving from corporations, giving from family foundations. That's one that I think that organization, it's not spelled out here, but that's something to look at. But the bequests thing is kind of interesting because again, what's a bequest is related to the plan giving, right?
Mhm.
Bequests is related to individuals. So you should look at bequests and individuals like in a way, kind of look at those together.
Mhm.
And that makes up 74% of that 590 some billion dollars. So again, it's back to individuals and relationships because the bequest gets tied to, I have a really good relationship with you. And you're going to make a, significant, investment in my organization. You believe really strongly in the mission and make a stronger commitment. So it comes down to relationships with individuals.
Got it. And maybe in the shifting, the correlation there of if perhaps requests are down, individual giving for that year is up.
Yeah, I mean, we just you can look at it year over year. It has been kind of trending down, which
Yep.
is kind of interesting. I think that so why is that? Well, one related item is the wealth transfer. $70 trillion. I mean, we've all heard the figure. $70 trillion over the next 20 years is going to be transferred from the boomers to their, to their it's going to move out.
Well, I
Um,
actually would like let's explore that a little bit, and then I have some other
okay.
questions very very related to this report and your work at Bloomerang. I think that actually it might be that we've got some listeners that haven't really heard of this great wealth transfer, and maybe they have, but how if you're the executive director, say of a nonprofit that's doing under $1 million in revenue, maybe 100,000 in revenue, $250,000 in revenue, how could this great wealth transfer be sort of a strategy or just kinda knowing that this is happening, be a uh, what should they take away?
Okay. Well, first, it's about knowing your donors, right? And understanding what is the spectrum of your donor. Go survey them. So can you figure out what life stage they're in? There's all kinds of public data out there and things that you can layer in with your technology to understand your donor and maybe what life stage they're in. And go after that donor population that maybe falls into the looking at your let's pretend you've got 100 donors that are fall perfectly in that baby boomer generation and they're probably going to be experiencing wealth transfer, right? At some point. Get personal with them, like get the relationship going, get the conversations. Cause here's something that I'm hearing and seeing anecdotally is your donor that maybe is in the boomer generation, they absolutely love your cause. And I talked to a local nonprofit here where I live, and they said, yeah, they've been giving and giving and giving, and they've got 3 kids, and the 3 kids want nothing to do with our organization. So we're worried that now that donation source is going to go away because we somehow haven't been able to connect with their kids and they don't care about them.
Absolutely. I think that is a critical point, and we'll get into how Bloomerang, helps organizations on the CRM and data because I think you've just got a great company, and we want to be promoting that and highlighting, ultimately the solution, some of the tools that you've brought to the market. There's the other side of it, which I think is really important. on the CRM and having a good website and an easy way for people to be able to give because those kids like in that scenario, those kids are likely giving to some other organization. Now, maybe right now they've only made a $50 donation or a $100 donation, but they could be the recipients of hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of millions of dollars. I mean, this is quite frankly what's happening with this great wealth transfer. Identifying that and figuring out ways to steward them and sort of get them engaged, even if it's a first time donor and they're just making a $50 donation, maybe talk about the importance of that and then maybe ways nonprofits can use technology to make that successful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a term I like to use, which is the meaty middle. And this is, those first time donors or there's a whole, so a lot of organizations love to have a major gifts officer. Great. Awesome that you're doing that, right? Now, but let's not ignore the meaty middle because this can be a really powerful, sustainable source of fundraising for you. So those smaller gifts, those mid-size or smaller gifts, right? Go look at what frequency some donors might be self-identifying that they're giving on a regular cadence already. Go back and ask them for a recurring gift and or maybe you get a $100 donation once a year from one of those maybe one of those kids that might be coming up on a wealth transfer in their own family. Okay, they're giving $100 a year to your organization. Could we go back to them and say, hey, instead of $100 a year, how about $10 a month? Right. And it's an auto recurring thing. So now you don't have to wait on them remembering to give to you. They've set up a recurring donation that is a manageable amount, $10. Would you rather have $100 or would you rather have $120? Right. And if you start to scale that, that can be a real meaningful impact, especially as fundraising sources are shifting. This meaty middle of these mid levels or smaller donors, and then going back and identifying opportunities for recurring giving patterns is going to be really, really important. So, do you have the right tools and tech to do that? Can you segment and identify those donors that would be best suited? Because we're seeing phenomenal results with organizations that start to tap into and put some energy into a recurring giving program. So my last point on this is like, okay, we have major gifts officer. Why don't we have somebody that is the recurring gift officer? Because that's that meaty middle. That's a powerful, sustainable, predictable source of fundraising revenue for an organization. So food for thought.
I think it's a great idea. I haven't heard of that title before, but I think more organizations should do that. Recurring gifts
Yeah, I
officer.
think so too. I mean,
No,
the stuff that,
absolutely.
yeah, it's a good place. And we got to have like lots of different ways through which we're going to get our where we're going to raise
Mhm.
funds through. And so, can we think holistically about that?
Coming back to specifically the report that came out 2025, and just trying to think also just big picture, not just that in a snapshot of 1 year, but some of the trends maybe that you're seeing over the past, like looking back 10 years, and then looking forward 5, 10 years. What are some of the things that you think leaders of nonprofits and board members alike should be trying to figure out how to adapt to continue to be able to run successful organizations and fundraise? What do you
Yeah.
think the data is telling us? And then also what's your, kinda hunch as well, just intuitively?
Well, okay. So what the data tells us is don't succumb to the idea of donors are fatigued and they don't want to give. So don't give in to that because the trend says that they give and they continue to give. Now, it is important to recognize that the individual donor's feeling of wealth is somewhat tied to stock market performance. So right now you might be feeling a little bit of pinch from a mid-level or major donor that's like, I'm going to wait just a little bit to see. So as the stock market starts to tick up, that's when you want to start to go back to them that maybe they said, I'm not going to give to you in March because the market wasn't doing so well. Watch the market performance and kind of come back. So that's one thing that the data says that they're generous, but know that know your donors and your own organization, what you might be facing, and just kind of realize that donors somewhat mirror or lag behind stock market performance. That's just kind of one highlight or insight. Another interesting thing, it's not necessarily called out in Giving USA, but there's some other trends that I see in the nonprofit sector. And I think this is an interesting one is family foundations. So think of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? They announced a spend down plan and they actually announced the acceleration of their spend down plan. And so if you have family foundations as a part of your fundraising strategy, one, make sure you know what their governor's policies. What we're starting to see is family foundations are starting to embrace more spend down plans, meaning we're not going to last in perpetuity. We're going to try and get rid of all of our money by this date. And so what that might mean is maybe there's a source of funding that you rely on time year after year after year after year that might go away. So are you aware of that? But then two, there's opportunity. Go look around in your neighborhood, in your world, in terms of family foundations that might align to what your mission is. And go make an ask and see if there's a connection there because there is a lot of money being given away. Food for thought on that one.
For sure. No, I really appreciate you pointing that out. Talk to us, Anne, about Bloomerang specifically. Can you walk us through if an organization that's listening to this has either never heard of Bloomerang or maybe has just knows it by name. I know that you all have we talked before we hit record of the expanded scope of a lot of additional products and features that Bloomerang has added in recent years. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So when you think of Bloomerang, think of Bloomerang equals raise more for my organization, whether raise more dollars, raise more time from my volunteers, raise more support, right, from your whole kind of supporter ecosystem. And so what we have is we have the best in donor management or CRM technology. We have robust volunteer management, so the time with volunteers, and we have the best and a very in-depth set of fundraising tools. So whether you're fundraising online, maybe you're doing an event, maybe you're doing auctions, all of that together in one, what we call it's the Bloomerang giving platform. We want to make it really easy. So today, a lot of these technologies are separated and it's hard to make the connections, but that's a group of people that are interested in supporting your organization. And so we make it really easy for you to engage with them, not just on a transactional basis, but a relationship building basis. And with each interaction that you have with them, you're building this, compounding cycle of growth of where you're raising more support. So there's a lot that you can do there. So, for example,
Mhm.
maybe you're a nonprofit and you're like, we gotta our donation, our online donation page is just, not it's not performing how we want it to be. Well, customers that are using Bloomerang and using our fundraising capabilities are seeing a 30% lift in their conversion rate on their donation pages. I would like that. That's a pretty meaningful lift when
Yeah,
we
and
think
I'm on your
about,
site. I mean,
yeah,
here's a case study in
yeah,
particular
yeah.
of the Education Foundation of Lake County, and that's cool. I think what also is great about I mean, look, I'm not paid by Bloomerang, just to be really clear here. Um, but I have known of your your company for a while, and I think what strikes me here is that you have more than 26,000 nonprofits that you're working with. That's a significant part of the percent, especially when you think of like the breakdown and how many of the 2 million nonprofits are random shell nonprofits or foundations or whatever. So that's a terrific number. But I like seeing the case studies, and I think organizations will. So I'm just going to click into one. But I know I interrupted you there. So if I
No, I love
interrupted
this. I
your
mean, because the proof is in the pudding. And really, I think that this is when you're looking at technology that you want to, technology and looking for truly a partner, you've got to look at the stories, the case
Mhm.
studies, the references, because word of mouth, it's really powerful. And that's the thing was at Bloomerang, we want to make great technology to make your life easier so you can raise more support, whatever it might be. You are going to be raising more on the Bloomerang platform. But just as important is you need a partner by your side in answering your questions and guiding you and helping you navigate through some of the challenges we just talked about, like how do I set up a recurring giving program? Where should I where should I work next? Organizations that are leaning into the team at Bloomerang, our team helps them identify those things. And so it really is it's about having a technology partner, not just a vendor, not just free technology, because free technology, I can tell you there's a lot of challenges with that. How good is their support, right? Can I actually talk to somebody on the phone? Do you have coaches and consultants on staff that are guiding and advising if that's something that I want to tap into? So it really is about making them more successful. So we have this great technology and really passionate employees about nonprofits and helping you do more good. And then also on the flip side too is we create a lot of resources. We firmly believe of helping the whole nonprofit sector thrive. And so our blogs, we do every Thursday, we do a thought leader series. We bring in outside experts to speak and present on a whole wealth of topics related to nonprofits. So go to the resources page and webinars and events. You'll see every week we've got all kinds of topics. And so there's a really fun community there. So on our Thursday webinars, we'll get 1,000 attendees. And the community that happens in the discussion forum and people helping each other out and answering questions and has anybody seen this or that? Um, it's awesome. And I think that that's what we're here is about. It's time to embrace. There is generosity all around. We're going to have to support each other as a community and find that. And we make it easier to do that.
That's awesome. We'll start promoting some of these. We're actually in the process of doing more and more on our side as well on the education and training side. There's probably some cool ways to collaborate, but I'm just sharing the screen
Yeah,
right here. I
definitely.
mean, that's amazing. This one I'm really July 24th. I'm attending this one. AI enhanced storytelling and content creation for nonprofits. Cool. I love it.
Yeah,
This is really
yeah,
great stuff. I really
yeah,
appreciate it for the whole nonprofit community
yeah. These are free. You don't. I
that you're
mean,
investing in.
you
Yeah.
just
So
sign up and you'll get the email
we
and
we
then
we
the link to attend.
we spent right now a bunch of time on like the CRM side. Can you talk about just I mean, I know you out look, it's not all like, a commercial for Bloomerang, but I really appreciate the sincerity, of this conversation and what we're trying
Hmm.
to, kind of educate organizations on. I know that Bloomerang expanded into the volunteer management space as well. Can you talk about the importance of that for organizations?
Ah,
And
thanks
how
for
does that
hitting on
also
that.
tie into like overall growing, nonprofits?
Yeah, it's a really important component. And I'll just start with a story. So
Hmm.
there was an organization in the Indianapolis area that was a food bank. And for 20 years, they had this public school teacher. She would come in, like, so she retired and she'd come in and she'd volunteer once a week, right? And she'd be dressed to the nines and ready to go and like really took her volunteer shift seriously. And she was a single woman public school teacher, right? So she's just dedicated to this organization, giving her time week after week after week. Now, okay, let's fast forward. She passed away. She gifted over $1 million to this organization. And so, in the story in that is that your volunteers, while they may be just giving with their time for now, one, you can go back and ask them for donations or recurring donations because they're passionate about your mission. And then, also cultivating and fostering that relationship. So it's a really important component is this woman what we would call a super supporter, meaning they gave with their time and then she really gave with her treasure. And so there's a lot of power in being able to bring those two things together of your donors that can become volunteers if you're struggling with volunteers, and your volunteers that can become donors. And so making sure that you have all of that visibility in one place so you can build a cycle of generosity with your supporters.
I think that I appreciate you sharing that because I think that that's why I'm excited to get to know you better and Bloomerang of the wrapper that you're trying to provide to help nonprofits have kind of one place and so many of these things that can help their organization grow now and also over time come hand in hand. Can you talk about some of the features like how would your volunteer kind of platform and those types of tools what can they actually do on there?
Well, I mean, you can be scheduling, I mean, all the things from recruiting volunteers to
Mhm.
scheduling volunteers to easily communicating when their shifts are coming up. Because how often is like, oh, I forgot about my shift, right? And so being able to automate just those communications, those reminders, we've got an app, so it makes it really easy for the volunteer to even sign up for their own schedules that work with them. So we're just working to make it really easy for a volunteer to engage and connect and make sure they show up and they're, connected. So a lot of different, there's a whole list of features when it comes to, when you look at the capabilities of making it
Mhm.
easy from scheduling to background screening to, recruitment workflows, making it self-serve. Again, with volunteers, you want to make it really easy and put it right in their fingertips. And then also, I think it's really important is it's one thing to have a standalone tool because you might go, oh, well, we have a volunteer management system. It's like, great, but is it talking to your whole kind of ecosystem of supporters? So for us, it's the Bloomerang's giving platform where we bring together all of those people together in one place so you can see Sally is volunteering with her time, but now she just made a $10 gift because she right at the end of her shift, she felt compelled to do something. And so having that all in one place, you can build on that relationship and understand the ways in which she is active and engaging with you. That's going to be a really important component when I hear time again from nonprofits. I want to build a stronger relationship with that supporter. How do I do that? And it's like you need something like this to bring it all together for you, so you can see their activity and what they care about.
Awesome. Makes total sense. And I really appreciate you sharing that. And as we start to get to towards the end of this interview, this podcast episode, I wanted to get some of your advice just in general, your experience in the business world.
Mhm.
And I'll give the a little bit of background information. I know you've had a whole career, in the tech and for-profit sector. For example, at Oracle, you've been in the private equity world as well. And for a number of years now, you've been CMO, you've been at Bloomerang, and in this mission-driven side, what are you passionate about? What has kind of been the difference as you look back on your career and then, what you're doing now to drive impact?
So always been in tech, but early in my career, I worked for the Minnesota High Tech Association as the manager of member services. So it was my job to go out and get individuals and corporations to join this nonprofit tech association and to further our mission of fostering sustainable long-term tech in Minnesota. And we used an Access database. There were 6 of us on staff. Like, I felt all those things. So that was, I think, what was really fun with finding Bloomerang was
Mhm.
I lived that, and I wish I had Bloomerang or something like that early in my career. But kinda looking back, like, to your question, like, what makes you passionate? And I think it's like, doesn't matter what you're representing or working for. It's about understanding the people that you're trying to serve and making an emotional connection with them, with how you're telling your stories, connecting and feeling really truly passionate about that. And I think that's what's really exciting is to bring this full circle of I'm really excited about technology. I'm also really excited about nonprofits and the work that they're doing. They fill such huge needs in our community. And so they deserve something better. And so I'm really excited to bring the intersection of growth and how to scale that growth and how to connect. Like I'm in marketing. Well, nonprofits we're in the fundraisers are in the relationship business. You're marketing and you're telling your stories. So being able to do that and bring that all together, I think is really, really exciting to kind of bring my lessons of growth and scale, but they can directly apply to the world of nonprofits and helping them do more good.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. On the other side of it, right? As CMO, approximately how many people are, within your marketing department are sort of like reporting to you at Bloomerang?
Okay. Well, I have 3 direct reports, and we
Uh-huh.
have about 36 people in marketing right now.
Wow.
So we have a pretty sizable marketing team, and they're pretty awesome, by the way. They're an amazing, creative group of people.
And how do you feel that you lead them best? When do things go right, and when do you have to course correct as a leader? When you have 3 direct reports, but you have really 30, what, 36, I mean, almost 40 people that,
Yeah.
you're responsible for.
Yeah. How do I leave the best? Get out of the way.
Okay, talk about that.
Yeah. I mean,
Were you in the way in before?
I
Did you
mean,
learn to get out of the way?
sure, I'm a pretty type A personality. I'm pretty opinionated and things like that. So, it's about being humble and knowing like I am not perfect and I still have a lot more to learn and I'm going to get a lot of things wrong. And so am I self-aware enough and humble enough to like realize when I do or when someone tells me I did, step back and go, "Oh gosh, I have something to learn from that. I'm going to do better." And so I think that's the thing, like from a leadership perspective. It doesn't matter how many direct reports you are. We're all human beings. We all wake up and want to do the best job that we can every day. So my job is to like get out of the way, but put the right tools and techniques and ideas in place for them to let them run and do their great work. Cause there are some like the team is amazing and smart and what they're doing in the website and SEO and the world. And I'll say like the world with AI and you know, ChatGPT overtaking Google search, like, yeah, our world is changing really fast too. We got to be on our game. So making sure we're enabling
Tell
our
me
team
about
to
it.
be on their
Been
game.
crazy
Y-
these past months. I mean, I think about it as a snapshot because of periods in time.
Yeah.
has just been everything's changed
It's
so
changed
quickly.
changed a lot, and it's gonna get faster, and that's like the
Yes.
currency is gonna be speed.
Yeah.
And maybe some of you have heard that, but, that's gonna be a big thing, and so using these AI technologies, even in nonprofits, there's a real benefit there. So but back to the team, I think it's about making sure that we connect. Like I said, you have to connect emotionally with who you're marketing to, selling to, pitching to, telling your story to. Do you understand what problems they might have, right? And why or how you can help them solve them so they can do what? Right? So when we talk to nonprofits of like, I can help you raise more so you can do more for your mission. You got to have that kind of full story there versus there are some marketers and especially in technology love to talk about our features and functions. Well, that's not that interesting because at the end of the day as a nonprofit person, I'm like, I have this problem and I have to solve it. Help me figure out how to solve it and get this outcome. And so being able to translate that, that's an ongoing challenge because it's really easy to talk about yourself and your features, but we have to make it about you, or the person that you're marketing and selling to and telling it in their words and what it means for them.
Thanks for sharing that. I have one final question, then I'll open it up if there's anything more you want to add before we wrap up this episode. And this is something that has been a huge part of my learning curve, starting Charity Charge and running it, is the people, right? And so you talk about getting out of the way and how great your team is. And I totally buy that and believe that. But you've got to do a really great job of finding those great individuals, asking the right questions, really making sure that you're recruiting and putting together the right team. So how does that process look, for you at Bloomerang? Like, what are you really looking for? What stood out to me is you said that everybody wakes up and wants to do their best. And maybe the people that you found, you know what I mean? But it's because you went through some process or something where you were able to identify that they were the right fit. So what gives you the best chance of success at Bloomerang in your experience to get the right people on the team in the first place?
Well, good question. It's not an exact science, right? It is really hard hiring great people. Two elements. One is a growth mindset. So, what kind of questions can you get to identify a growth mindset, right? Are they humble, hungry, and smart, right? Are they willing to be and are they curious? And especially now, I think curiosity, like kind of self motivated, curious about things is going to be a really important thing. So when you have a conversation, do they ask you a follow up question, right? So do they ask, now why? Tell me more about that. Why is that important? That curiosity element or they're self identifying things with AI that can help them do their job better and they're intentionally they're automatically serving that back up to you without asking for it. So that's something. But I had a conversation with a leader once where I thought this was really fascinating. I think it's a highlights something is tell me it was an interview question. It was like, tell me anything, something that you became the best at. Is there anything that you've ever done in your life where you pursued and you became the best at, whatever it might be? And it could be a wide range of responses because it's really not about like, oh, I was the, top whatever athlete on my high school sports team. Sure, that's a fine answer. But that doesn't have to be the type of answer. It could be I was a delivery driver for Domino's and I got, a quarter for 6 consecutive quarters. Well, that's the being the best at something, right? And it's looking for that where people are wanting to push to be better each day. And it's like some days, it's hard, but can we get 1% better every day? Right. And so some of that drive, I think, is an important thing to look at when you're building out your team.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. We're actually interviewing a new potential intern in about an hour, so I'm gonna take that.
I mean, they could
I
be
love
like,
it.
"I
It's
won the
practical.
yodeling
Well,
competition," and it
they
would be
I
like,
already
"That's
know.
so cool. How'd you do that?"
So he was high school valedictorian, but let me see if he's got anything else. I bet he does.
Yeah, so hungry. So look for things that are hungry because clearly smart, right?
Yeah, I know.
But are they humble and are they hungry? So
It's funny because he came in 2 weeks ago for an initial to kinda meet the team, and I'm like, huge brain. He's moving way faster than I am. I could just tell
but that's a good thing because you
Yeah.
also wanna like, you as a leader has to be humble enough to say, like, "I want smarter people than me.
Yes. Yeah. No, this is
I
like,
don't know how to
no
do all
doubt.
this stuff." Yeah.
High IQ. But we here have really over the past, in different ways, I think we've had it, but we have really solidified and tried to rally around hiring and firing around our core values. And there's been a lot of positivity, but a lot of things have changed around here. because of that. So now that's the map and that's what this is about, right?
You
For
hit
sure.
on something I think is really important. It's the hiring and firing. So recognizing quickly when someone or something's just not the right fit because they're likely miserable and you're miserable. So also decide being brave to make those changes, I think is really important um, to embrace. And what you needed maybe 5 years ago versus what you need now is probably different. And so either the people on your team can scale and flex into those new qualities and skills that you need or you need a different mix, and that's normal and okay too. Like, everybody,
I
like
wish I had spoken to you literally a year ago to have a little bit of that because we moved on from a number of people and recruited and brought in some other and it was I a year ago when two people that had been with us for over 4 years and I loved them. I mean, they were really, really great people. But I was trying to build a team in Austin and other things, and it is what it is. I was like, even though there's been so much crap I've had to dealt with, bootstrapping this company and starting with as an idea, the automatic light went off in the room, so I'm just waving my arms to try to get it on. These smart buildings are a little too smart. We I wanted to I wanted to quit. I was like, firing is just the worst thing that I've gone through
it's
as a founder and
terrible.
leader here. It is. I mean, all the other stuff I had to like grunt through, and was like on me. Yeah, but I've learned it's part of it. And then that's really reinforced us to really think about what is our recruiting process, our hiring process, all of that. But now I know I have the scars on my back that if they're not the right, we move on immediately. And it's for everyone's benefit. People always say that,
It
but it's
is.
both sides win to just move on, when it's right. So anyway, just part of the journey and trying to get better.
It is really hard, and a lot of it has to do with, like, how carry through that, and there's a lot we could talk a whole 'nother podcast
I'm
on that.
sure I look
I
I
have
look
plenty
forward
of
to it.
battle scars too.
Yeah.
And because it's people, and we care a lot about people, and they did awesome work in their time, and then it becomes a time for change. A change for them, like, changing jobs like, after a awesome run is not a bad thing because sometimes they need a little bit of breathing space to pick their head up and look around and then, jump into their next thing. So, anyway, I could talk for a while about that,
I'm
but
with you.
it is hard, but it is
Yep,
part of the job, and how you do it and how you treat people also is a really important part of how you execute on that.
totally agree. And thank you so much for being on this episode. For everyone listening, once again, this is the Charity Charge Show with Ann Fellman, CMO of Bloomerang. Thank you so much.
Stephen, thank you. It was great to be here.